Before this story begins, understand one thing. What you're about to hear is real. It happened inside an American prison where silence was forced, fear was law, and people disappeared without a trace. If stories like this matter to you, stories that expose what history tried to hide, then subscribe now. Because this channel is where real American crime stories are remembered, not forgotten. Now listen closely. This story starts where silence was broken. The man did not scream. His mouth opened, his eyes widened, his hands shook, but no sound came out. That was the rule inside Auburn Prison: silence. As the guard raised the whip, every other inmate stood frozen in their place, eyes down, back straight, lips sealed tight. They had learned the lesson long ago. If one man screamed, everyone paid. If one man spoke, punishment followed, not just for him, but for the others too. The whip cracked through the air and struck flesh. Still, no sound. The warden stood nearby, calm, still, almost bored. This was not chaos. This was order. This was Auburn Prison in the late 1800s, and fear was the real warden. But what happened next inside those stone walls would shock even the men who believed they had seen everything. Because that day, one prisoner would break the rule that no one dared to break. And once silence was broken, Auburn Prison would never be the same again. Years before that moment, Auburn Prison was praised, not feared. Built in New York in the early 1800s, Auburn was meant to be a model prison. Lawmakers, judges, and prison reformers traveled from across the United States and even Europe to study it. They believed Auburn had found the perfect way to control criminals. It was called the silent system. Prisoners worked together during the day. They marched together. They ate together. They labored side by side in workshops. But they were never allowed to speak. Not a word, not a whisper, not even a prayer spoken aloud. At night, they were locked alone in narrow cells. During the day, they moved like machines, guided by bells, whistles, and guards' batons. Their eyes faced forward, their hands stayed busy, their mouths stayed shut. If an inmate spoke, even by accident, punishment was immediate. This system gave wardens total power, and power inside Auburn Prison slowly turned into something darker. By the 1870s and 1880s, Auburn Prison had changed. Overcrowding grew worse. Cells built for one man now held two. Food grew smaller. Labor hours grew longer. Guards became harsher. And the wardens knew something important. Silence hid everything. If no one could speak, no one could complain. If no one could speak, no one outside would ever know the truth. Inside Auburn, punishment was not just physical, it was mental. Men were beaten for dropping tools. Men were whipped for turning their heads. Men were locked in dark cells for days for the smallest mistake. Some inmates began to lose their minds. Others lost their lives. And most of those deaths were never fully explained. Official records used calm words: sudden illness, accidental fall, natural causes. But prisoners knew better. They watched men disappear into solitary cells and never return. They saw bodies carried out at night. They noticed how guards avoided certain questions. They understood that inside Auburn, silence did not mean peace. It meant control. At the center of the system stood the warden. He wore clean clothes. He spoke softly. He followed the rules on paper.
But inside the walls, his word was law. He decided who worked harder, who ate less, who went to the dark cells, who was punished quietly away from witnesses. Guards feared him almost as much as inmates did. If a guard showed mercy, he was punished too. If he questioned orders, he could lose his job. So, most guards obeyed. They swung the whip, they locked the doors, they looked away. One inmate, whose name was later found buried in old prison records, arrived at Auburn after a minor crime. He was young, strong, not used to silence. During his first week, he made mistakes. He turned his head. He whispered once in his sleep. That was enough. He was sent to solitary confinement. The cell was small, cold, dark. No talking, no light, no visitors. Bread and water were pushed through a slot in the door. Days passed, then weeks. When he was finally brought out, something had changed. His eyes did not focus right. His steps were slow. He did not look like the man who had entered that cell. The guards marched him back to work, and that was when it happened. The tools slipped from his hands. The sound echoed in the workshop. Every man froze. The guard turned. The warden was called. Punishment was ordered. This was the moment we began with, the moment when the whip was raised, the moment when the prison held its breath. But something inside the inmate broke. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was pain. Maybe it was weeks of silence crushing his mind. As the whip struck again, a sound escaped his mouth. Not a word, a scream. It echoed through the workshop like thunder. For the first time in years, Auburn Prison heard a human voice raised in pain. Guards rushed forward. Inmates were forced to kneel. The man was dragged away, still screaming, still alive, still defying the rule that had controlled Auburn for decades. The warden watched, his face unreadable. Because once silence was broken, it could never be fully restored. And what happened to that inmate after he was taken away would begin a chain of events that exposed the darkest crimes hidden inside Auburn Prison. Crimes that officials tried to bury, crimes that changed prison history, crimes ruled by fear. And the next chapter begins in the place no prisoner wanted to go, the dark cells. The door closed with a sound no man inside Auburn Prison ever forgot. It was not loud, it was not violent, it was final. When the inmate who broke the silence was dragged away, he was taken down a narrow stone hallway beneath the main prison floor. The air grew colder with every step. Light faded, sounds disappeared. This place was known by many names, but prisoners whispered only one: the dark cells. These cells were not meant for punishment alone. They were meant to erase people. The inmate was shoved inside, the door slammed shut, the lock turned, and just like that, he vanished from the world. No speaking, no working, no sunlight. Only darkness, cold stone, and the sound of your own breathing. Inside Auburn, the dark cells were the warden's strongest weapon. There were no written limits on how long a man could stay there. Some stayed for days, some for weeks. A few never walked out alive. Official records said the dark cells were necessary for discipline, but prisoners knew the truth.
There were places where rules did not exist. The inmate who screamed was left alone. Bread and water came less often than usual, sometimes not at all. Guards were told not to respond if he called out, and even if he did, no one would hear him. Time stopped making sense. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt like days. In the darkness, the mind turned against itself. This was not unusual at Auburn. Many inmates came out of the dark cells shaking, confused or broken. Some could no longer follow commands. Some forgot how to speak at all. Others were carried out on stretchers.
When a body left the dark cells, it was usually late at night. Guards avoided eye contact. No questions were asked. The prison doctor signed papers using the same words over and over. Exhaustion, illness, natural causes. Outside the walls, Auburn Prison still looked clean and controlled. Visitors were shown workshops and quiet rows of marching inmates. Silence was praised as proof of success. But inside, fear grew heavier every day. The inmates knew something had changed after the scream. Guards were harsher. Punishments came faster. The warden tightened control. Speaking was punished more severely than ever before. It was as if the prison itself was angry. Days passed, then weeks. The man who screamed did not return. Inmates began to whisper with their eyes and small movements. They tapped codes into walls. They passed messages through tools and laundry carts. Silence could be forced, but fear found ways to communicate. One message spread faster than any other. He's dead. No one knew for sure, but everyone believed it. And belief was enough. At the same time, something else was happening beyond Auburn's walls. Families of inmates had started asking questions. Men who were healthy before prison were dying suddenly. Letters stopped coming. Some families were told their loved ones had fallen ill, but no bodies were returned. No funerals were allowed. A few newspaper writers began to notice patterns. Deaths that were not explained. Punishments that were never recorded. A prison that shared very little information. But Auburn Prison was powerful. Local officials defended it. The warden spoke calmly and confidently when asked. He insisted discipline saved lives. Silence created order. The prison worked exactly as intended, and for a long time, people believed him. Inside Auburn, the guards followed orders, but cracks began to show. Not all guards were cruel. Some had joined believing they were serving justice. Over time, they saw too much, men beaten until they collapsed, inmates locked away and forgotten, punishments that went far beyond the law. One guard began keeping notes. He wrote down dates, names, injuries, time spent in dark cells. He hid the papers inside his coat and later beneath floorboards in his home. This was dangerous. Guards who spoke up were fired or threatened. Some were accused of helping inmates. A few disappeared from their jobs without explanation. Still, the notes continued. Inside the prison, the pressure exploded. One night, an inmate refused to stand in line. He did not speak. He did not fight. He simply stood still. The guards rushed him. Others followed. Soon the workshop filled with chaos. Tools fell. Men stumbled. Orders were shouted. The silent system had broken again. The punishment was swift. Dozens of inmates were beaten. Several were sent to solitary. The warden personally ordered extended confinement. That night, cries echoed through Auburn's lower levels, unheard by the world outside. By morning, 2 inmates were missing. Their names were removed from work lists. Their beds stayed empty. The prison doctor signed more papers. Outside, rumors grew louder. By the late 1880s, New York officials could no longer ignore the reports. Public pressure forced a limited investigation. Inspectors were sent to Auburn Prison. The warden prepared carefully. Cells were cleaned. Inmates were warned. Guards were reminded to enforce silence perfectly. The dark cells were locked and hidden from view. When inspectors arrived, Auburn looked calm. No screams, no blood, no visible abuse. The warden guided them through workshops and cell blocks. Inmates marched silently, heads down, exactly as expected. The inspectors left with mixed feelings. Some suspected wrongdoing. Others believed Auburn was simply strict. But then, something went wrong. One inspector asked a question he was not supposed to ask. He asked about inmate deaths. The warden answered smoothly, but his voice changed just slightly. The inspector noticed. He asked again, this time requesting records. Records were delayed. Pages were missing. Names did not match dates. And then, a former inmate came forward. He was released weeks earlier. His body showed scars. His mind still trembled. He told reporters about the dark cells, the beatings, and the man who screamed and never returned. The story spread. Public trust cracked. Officials demanded answers. Inside Auburn, the warden felt control slipping. That night, an order was given. The dark cells would be used again. An inmate believed to be talking to outsiders was taken from his cell. He struggled. Guards dragged him through the familiar hallway into darkness, but this time, something was different. He did not disappear quietly. He fought back, and in that struggle, a guard was injured.
Blood spilled inside the dark corridor. By morning, Auburn Prison was on edge, because an injured guard meant attention, and attention was the one thing the warden feared more than anything else. As officials prepared to return, Auburn Prison stood at a breaking point. The truth was close. The silence was failing. And the next chapter would reveal what happened when fear could no longer hide behind stone walls. The guard did not expect blood. He had walked these halls for years. He had dragged men to the dark cells before. Most inmates went quietly. Fear usually did the work. But this time, the inmate fought back. Not with words, not with weapons, with desperation. When the struggle ended, the guard was alive but injured. That single fact changed everything. An injured guard could not be hidden the way a broken inmate could. A wounded officer meant questions, reports, attention from above. By sunrise, Auburn Prison felt different. Guards whispered when they thought no one was listening. Inmates sensed it immediately. Fear still ruled the prison, but now fear had a crack in it. The warden knew this was dangerous. He had spent years building control through silence, through punishment, through fear that kept everyone in line. But now, outside officials were watching. Newspapers were asking questions. Inspectors were coming back. And silence alone would not save him anymore. Orders went out quickly. No more dark cell punishments until further notice. All inmate movement strictly controlled. No one speaks to outsiders. The prison became quieter than ever, but not calmer. The injured guard was sent home. Official records said he slipped during inmate transport. Nothing more. No investigation inside the prison. But rumors spread fast. Inmates learned that someone had fought back and survived. That idea, small as it was, spread like fire in dry grass. For the first time in years, fear was no longer one-sided. Meanwhile, outside Auburn's walls, pressure grew stronger. The former inmate who spoke to reporters was not alone anymore. Others came forward. Families demanded answers. Religious groups questioned the silent system. Lawyers asked to see death records. And the notes kept by the guard, the one who had been writing things down for years, were no longer hidden. He made a choice. One night, after his shift, he did not go home right away. He met someone instead, a local official who had doubts about Auburn, but no proof. The guard handed over the papers. Dates, names, punishments, time spent in dark cells, deaths that followed days later. It was not neat, it was not perfect, but it was enough. When state officials reviewed the notes, they saw patterns they could not ignore. Men sent to solitary for minor mistakes, extended confinement without approval, deaths following punishment with no medical explanation. The state ordered a full inspection. This time, there would be no warning. When inspectors arrived, Auburn was caught off guard. Cells were opened, records were demanded, guards were questioned separately. The dark corridor beneath the prison was discovered. The dark cells were not clean, they were not forgotten, they were used recently. Inspectors asked about the inmate who screamed months ago. No one could produce him. No release record, no death certificate, no transfer papers. He had vanished. The warden stayed calm. He always did. He claimed illness. He claimed mistakes in record-keeping. He claimed his prison was under attack by critics who did not understand discipline. But now, silence was not enough anymore. Guards were interviewed one by one. Some stayed silent. Some repeated the same answers. But one guard broke. He did not give a speech. He did not make accusations. He simply said he was tired of watching men disappear. That was all it took. The investigation widened.
The silent system itself was questioned. Reports described mental collapse, extreme punishment, and abuse hidden behind forced quiet. Newspapers ran headlines that shocked the public. The image of Auburn Prison changed overnight. Once praised as a model, it was now described as cruel and dangerous. Lawmakers argued. Some defended the system. Others demanded reform. Inside the prison, everything tightened. Inmates were locked down. Movement stopped. Guards watched each other. No one trusted anyone. The warden still held power, but it was slipping. Eventually, the state made its decision. The silent system would be reduced, oversight would increase, dark cell use would be restricted. Wardens would no longer have unchecked authority. It was not justice for the dead. It was not punishment for every crime committed inside those walls, but it was the beginning of the end. The warden was removed quietly. No trial, no prison sentence. He left Auburn the same way he had ruled it, silently. The inmate who screamed was never officially found. Some believed he died in the dark cells. Others believed his records were erased to protect the prison. His name faded, but his scream did not, because that scream did something no rule could stop. It exposed fear. Auburn Prison continued to operate, but it was changed forever. The silent system slowly disappeared across the country. Prisons began to understand that silence could hide cruelty, not fix it, and the lesson remained. When power goes unchecked, when voices are forced quiet, when fear becomes law, crime does not disappear. It moves behind walls. And even today, the shadow of Auburn Prison still hangs over the American prison system, because silence is not peace, it is a warning. If you're still watching, it means this story has pulled you in, and that's exactly why this channel exists. Every story we tell is real. Every case happened in the United States, and every voice you hear here once had no one listening. If you don't want these stories to disappear again, subscribe to the channel. New true crime documentaries are coming, and some stories only get told once. Now, let's continue. The scream was gone, but its echo remained. Long after the warden left Auburn Prison, long after the dark cells were officially restricted, something invisible still lived inside those stone walls. It was not written in rule books, it was not listed in records, but everyone who walked those corridors could feel it. Fear had learned how to survive. On a cold morning, not long after the investigation, inmates were ordered into the yard. This was rare. Too many men together made officials nervous. Too many eyes meant too many memories, but this day was different.
A state official stood on a raised platform and read from a paper. His voice echoed across the yard. He spoke of reforms, of oversight, of change, of a future where Auburn would no longer rely on silence to control men. The inmates listened without reacting. They had learned that words often meant nothing. When the speech ended, the men were marched back inside. The doors closed, the locks turned. Life inside Auburn continued. But beneath the surface, something had shifted. Guards were no longer sure who was watching them. Some softened, others became harsher, afraid of losing control. Punishment did not disappear, it changed shape. Silence was no longer enforced with whips as often, but fear still filled the air. New wardens came and went, rules were rewritten, inspections became regular. On paper, Auburn improved, yet old habits die slowly. Inmates still disappeared into solitary for long periods. Injuries still happened without clear explanation. Deaths still occurred quietly. And always, there were gaps in the records. Years later, a young clerk working in the prison office noticed something strange. He was sorting through old files, some dating back decades. Many were damaged, some were missing pages, others stopped suddenly, mid-sentence. He found one file thinner than the rest. No name on the cover, no date of death, no transfer record, only a short note inside. Inmate removed from population. That was it. No explanation. The clerk felt uneasy. He asked a senior officer about it. The officer looked at the file, then closed it slowly. Some things, he said, are better left alone. The file disappeared the next day. But curiosity is dangerous. The clerk began to ask quiet questions. Old guards, retired workers, men who had been there long enough to remember the silent system. At first, no one spoke. Then one man did. An old guard, his back bent by time, told the clerk about the scream, about the whip, about the inmate who never came back, about the warden who ruled without raising his voice. The guard's hands shook as he spoke. "We thought silence kept us safe," he said, "but it only kept the truth trapped." The clerk wrote everything down, not for newspapers, not for fame, for history, because Auburn Prison was no longer just a building, it was a lesson. Across the United States, prisons were changing. Reformers pointed to Auburn as a warning. Silence without accountability became a symbol of cruelty. The dark cells became proof that control could turn criminal. But even as laws changed, the question remained. How many men were lost before anyone listened? Families never received answers. Graves were unmarked. Names were erased. Some stories were never told out loud. And maybe that was the final crime of Auburn Prison. Not the whippings, not the dark cells, not even the deaths, but the forgetting. Today, Auburn Prison still stands. Visitors walk past its walls. Cars pass by. Life moves on. Few people stop to think about what happened inside during those years when silence ruled everything. But sometimes, former inmates claim they hear something late at night. Not screams, not words, just the sound of someone trying to speak.
And failing. Because fear does not disappear when a warden leaves. It does not vanish when rules change. It lingers, it waits, and it reminds us of a simple truth. When power is unchecked, when voices are taken away, when silence is forced instead of earned, justice becomes another locked door. And somewhere in the shadows of Auburn Prison's past, the story is still not finished. The first truth came out by accident. Decades after the silent system ended, a renovation crew was sent into Auburn Prison's oldest wing. The job was simple: replace damaged stone, seal unused corridors, modernize what could be saved. But Auburn Prison was never simple. Behind a sealed wall, the workers found a narrow passage no longer listed on any blueprint. The air inside was stale, heavy, untouched. At the end of the passage sat a door made of iron, smaller than the others. It was locked. When they forced it open, light spilled into a space that had not seen the sun for generations. A dark cell. Inside, carved into the stone wall with what looked like a nail or broken metal, were marks, lines, numbers, scratches counting days. And beneath them, one word: help. The discovery was reported quietly. Officials said it was an old cell, nothing more, but word leaked out the way it always does. Historians took interest, journalists followed, and once again, Auburn Prison felt eyes on it. Records were pulled from state archives, old reports were reread, forgotten testimony resurfaced. The name of the warden who once ruled with fear appeared again and again, always without consequence, always untouched by punishment. What stood out most was not what the records said, it was what they did not say. There was still no official explanation for the inmate who screamed, no death record, no release, no transfer, just absence. A missing man erased by silence. As pressure grew, the state released a statement acknowledging past abuses under early prison systems. They stopped short of naming crimes. They stopped short of naming victims. But the public had learned something important. Auburn Prison was not an exception. It was a warning. Across the country, other prisons built on the Auburn model were re-examined. Dark cells, forced silence, absolute authority. Investigations revealed patterns that looked disturbingly familiar.
Silence had protected cruelty everywhere it was enforced. Former inmates' families began speaking out, even generations later. Some only had stories passed down in whispers. A great-grandfather who never came home, a brother whose letters stopped suddenly. No closure, no grave, no truth. And still the question remained, why did no one stop it sooner? The answer was simple and terrifying. Because fear worked. It kept inmates quiet. It kept guards obedient. It kept the public believing everything was under control. Until one scream broke through. That scream did not save the man who made it, but it weakened the system that tried to erase him. It cracked the walls just enough for truth to begin leaking out. And once truth escapes, it does not go back inside.
Today, people still debate punishment, still argue control, still claim silence brings order. But Auburn's past stands as proof that fear does not correct behavior. It only creates victims. Some names were never recovered. Some stories were never written down. Some men exist now only as scratches in stone and whispers passed through time. But one thing remains clear. The moment a scream broke Auburn's silence, the prison was exposed forever. And even now, if you listen closely, Auburn Prison still teaches its lesson. Not with words, not with signs, but with the heavy quiet that follows when truth has been buried too long. Because silence is never empty. It is full of what we refuse to face. And that is where this story ends. Not with a scream, not with justice, but with a warning. What you just heard was not fiction. It was real. It was American history, and for a long time, it was buried in silence. If this story stayed with you, if it made you think or pause or feel uneasy, then don't let it end here. Subscribe to this channel, because as long as we remember these stories, they cannot be erased again. And the next story is already waiting.